If I had $1 for every time someone told me, "John, you're out of your mind," I'd be sipping pina coladas on a private island right now. But back then, I wasn't listening to anyone, especially when it came to Martha. She was this magnetic force, bright smile, fiery personality, and a walk that could stop traffic. It's funny now looking back, because everyone saw the hurricane coming except me. I met Martha at a friend's barbecue. She walked in late, wearing this sundress that had every guy there tripping over themselves to offer her a drink. I was no exception. By the end of the night, we were sitting on the porch, talking about everything from music to the meaning of life. Well, she talked, and I mostly tried to keep my jaw off the floor. She had this spark, like she wasn't just alive, she was on fire. We started dating soon after, and let me tell you, that first year was a roller coaster. Not the fun kind with cotton candy and cheesy photos, but the kind where you're clinging to the bar, screaming, "Why did I get on this thing?" Martha was unpredictable. One minute she'd surprise me with a homemade dinner, and the next she'd be furious because I didn't text her back fast enough during a meeting. We fought a lot, but the making up part? Oh, that was something else. The passion between us was insane, like fireworks in a bottle. Still, there were moments when I wondered if I was the only one holding that bottle. Martha had this way of drawing attention, especially from other guys. I'd catch her laughing a little too hard at some dude's joke or leaning in just a bit too close. And yeah, it stung. But I told myself, she picked me. I thought I was the guy who could tame the flame, the one who was worth her attention. Then came the fights. God, the fights. One night, after another argument about something stupid, probably me not noticing her new haircut, Martha looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Maybe we should just get married. Then you'd stop doubting me." It was like being offered a Band-Aid for a bullet wound, but I was too smitten to see it. In my love-struck brain, marriage sounded like the perfect solution. Tie the knot, lock it down, and all the cracks in our relationship would magically disappear. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Before the wedding, my buddies tried to stage an intervention. "John," they said, "Martha's a wild card. She's exciting, sure, but she's not exactly the settle-down type." One guy, Mike, even called her a hot mess express. I almost punched him for that. In my head, they were just jealous. They didn't understand what we had, our passion, our chemistry, our whatever it was. We got married in a small ceremony. Martha looked stunning, of course. She always did. And for the first year and a half, I thought we were solid. Sure, she'd still get upset over little things, but I chalked it up to her fiery personality. I told myself that the rough patch was behind us, that we'd turned a corner. I was wrong. For the first year and a half of our marriage, I honestly thought I'd nailed it. Marrying Martha felt like the best decision I'd ever made. We were the couple everyone envied. At least, that's what I told myself. Sure, she was still fiery and unpredictable, but I loved that about her. Life with Martha wasn't dull, not by a long shot. Looking back, I think I was too busy patting myself on the back to notice the cracks. Around the year-and-a-half mark, things started shifting, though I didn't see it at the time. I just landed this incredible job. It was niche, specialized. One of those roles that made people say, "Wait, you do what for a living?" It paid well and kept me engaged, but it also came with some strings attached. One of those strings was working Saturdays, long Saturdays. I'd leave early in the morning and get back late in the evening, completely wiped. Martha didn't seem to mind, or at least she didn't say so. She worked too, though her job wasn't as demanding. Saturdays were her time to unwind. She had her fitness classes, coffee dates with friends, and a whole schedule that seemed to fill itself effortlessly. Most weekends, we'd meet back at our apartment in the evening, have dinner, and watch a movie. It felt normal, comfortable. And isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? Now, as I sit here piecing it all together, I realize I was clueless. I thought everything was perfect because I wasn't paying attention. My job was exciting, challenging, demanding enough that it pulled my focus. And while I was distracted, Martha's energy shifted. It was subtle at first. She seemed brighter, more alive. Her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen before. She was always busy, always buzzing with plans. "Where are you off to now?" I'd ask, half joking as she darted out the door. "Oh, just the gym," she'd say with a smile. Or, "Meeting the girls for brunch." She always had an answer, and I never thought to question it. Why would I? She looked happy, and isn't that what you want for your spouse? A happy wife, a happy life, that's how the saying goes, right? I even convinced myself that maybe she was planning something special. Our 2-year anniversary was coming up in a couple of months, and Martha loved surprises. She's probably got something up her sleeve, I thought. I mean, why else would she be so excited, so electric? But hindsight is a brutal thing. Now I can't think about that period without rolling my eyes at myself. "Oh, John," I want to say to the guy I was back then, "you sweet, naive idiot. She wasn't planning a surprise for you." We were living in this great apartment at the time, spacious, modern, with a view of the city that looked straight out of a postcard. I remember thinking how lucky I was, how lucky we were. A great place, a great job, and a wife who seemed happier than ever. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything. You ever have one of those days where the universe feels like it's trying to send you a message, but you're too busy whistling along to your own theme song to notice? That was me. That Saturday. It started like any other. Alarm buzzing too early, quick shower, black coffee, and out the door to work. Another long day ahead, or so I thought. The first sign? The parking spot. Normally, I had to do battle with a dozen other cars just to find a space, but that morning, front row, like the universe rolled out a red carpet just for me. All right, I thought. Today's looking good. Then, at work, things got weird. Meetings were canceled, deadlines got pushed. My boss, the kind of guy who wouldn't smile at his own kid's wedding, actually said, "Great job this week, John. Why don't you head out early?" I blinked at him like he'd just spoken in tongues. Early? On a Saturday? But I wasn't about to argue with good fortune. By 2 p.m. I was in my car, heading home, the rest of the day stretching out before me like a gift-wrapped box. I cranked up the music and started planning my afternoon. Martha's going to love this, I thought. I'll surprise her. Maybe dinner at that fancy French place she's been dropping hints about. Or we could hit a club, dance like we did when we first started dating. Hell, maybe we'll just stay in, open a bottle of wine, and binge some terrible reality show. The possibilities were endless, and I was feeling generous. Now, here's the part where I should have started paying attention. The signs, I mean. Like the fact that Martha hadn't texted me all day. Normally, she'd send me a selfie from the gym or a snap of her coffee with some artsy caption, but my phone was silent. I brushed it off, figuring she was busy with her Saturday routine, fitness class, brunch with the girls, maybe some shopping. I told myself, she'll be thrilled when I show up early. The closer I got to home, the more excited I became. Our apartment was on the 5th floor of this sleek, modern building. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a killer view of the skyline. It was the kind of place that made you feel like you'd made it. Pulling into the parking garage, I felt a little smug. Man, I've got it good, I thought. Great job, great wife, great life. I stepped out of the elevator and walked down the hallway, humming to myself. The keys jangled in my hand as I reached our door, and that's when I heard it. Music. Loud music. The kind that makes the walls vibrate and makes you wonder if your neighbors have a secret DJ booth in their living room. My hand froze on the doorknob. Martha? No, she couldn't be home. Saturdays were her day out. She was probably at the gym or with her friends. I glanced at my watch. 2:30 p.m. There was no reason for her to be back already. I stood there for a moment, keys in hand, heart suddenly beating a little too fast. Something felt off. But I shook it off, telling myself I was just being dramatic. She probably forgot her phone and came back to grab it, I thought. Or maybe she's cleaning with music? Yeah, that's it. With a deep breath, I slid the key into the lock. Before you find out what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, already planning my big reveal. Surprise, honey, I'm home early. But the words never made it out. Instead, I froze in my tracks, blinking at the scene in front of me. There, in the middle of our living room, stood a guy, in nothing but his underwear. Boxer briefs, to be precise. He was holding a glass of orange juice like he owned the place, as casual as if he'd just rolled out of my bed and decided to raid my fridge. For a split second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then the wave hit. Shock, fear, confusion, all at once. Was this guy a burglar? Some kind of lunatic? I mean, who breaks into someone's apartment and helps themselves to juice in their underwear? "Who the hell are you?" I barked. The guy just stared at me, wide-eyed, mid-sip, like I was the one who didn't belong here. And that's when instinct kicked in. I launched myself at him, not my proudest moment, but what else was I supposed to do? Apologize for interrupting his breakfast? We collided, and next thing I knew, we were on the floor, wrestling like two drunks fighting over the last slice of pizza. He squirmed and flailed, but I had adrenaline, and frankly, a lot of anger, on my side. In a few chaotic seconds, I managed to pin his arms behind his back. "Don't move," I snapped, fumbling for my phone. "I'm calling the cops." That's when I heard her voice. "John, wait." I looked up, and there she was. Martha, standing in the doorway to our bedroom, hair disheveled. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Just the sound of my breathing, his breathing, and that damn music still blasting from the speakers. "Martha," I said slowly, trying to piece it all together. What the hell is going on?" "Don't call the police," she blurted out, holding up her hands like I was the one out of control. "It's not what you think. He's a friend." "A friend?" I repeated, my voice rising. I glanced down at the guy I had pinned to the floor, then back at her. "Your friend is standing in our living room, in his underwear, drinking my juice? I can explain," she said, her voice shaky. Just let him go." I hesitated, still holding the guy's wrists. He looked at me with this desperate, pleading expression, like he was a kid caught stealing cookies. My grip loosened slightly. Big mistake. The moment I turned my head to look at Martha, he wriggled free. Before I could react, he bolted for the door, nearly tripping over our coffee table on the way out. "Hey!" I yelled, scrambling to my feet. But by the time I got to the door, he was already gone, sprinting down the hallway in nothing but his boxers. The slam of the stairwell door echoed behind him. I turned back to Martha, still standing there in her sheet, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "Explain," I said, my voice dangerously calm. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For a second, I thought she might start crying, but instead, she just shook her head. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Find out what, Martha?" I said, though deep down I already knew. The pieces were clicking together one by one. The music, the guy, her reaction. It all pointed to the same gut-wrenching conclusion. I wasn't ready to say it out loud, but the truth was there, staring me in the face. I'd just walked in on my wife cheating. The door had barely stopped swinging behind her friend before I rounded on Martha. My hands were shaking, my chest tight with a mix of rage and disbelief. "Start talking," I said, my voice low and sharp. "Who was that? What the hell is going on?" She clutched the sheet tighter around herself, avoiding my eyes. "It's not what you think," she mumbled, her voice trembling. "Oh, it's not what I think. Great, Martha. Why don't you enlighten me? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been screwing around with some guy in my apartment while I'm out working." Her head shot up at that, her face flushed red. "It's not like that," she snapped, tears welling in her eyes. I needed to know." "Know what, Martha?" I said, throwing up my hands. "Whether or not orange juice tastes better when it's stolen? Whether or not I'd catch you?" "What?" She looked away, biting her lip, her voice barely above a whisper. If I still had it. I stared at her, the words hanging in the air like smoke. "Had what?" "You know," she said, her voice cracking, "if I'm still attractive, if men still find me desirable." For a moment I was too stunned to speak. Then it hit me, and I couldn't stop the words from tumbling out. "You're telling me you brought some guy into our home, into my bed, to stroke your ego. Because you needed reassurance that you're still hot? It's not like that, she repeated, tears streaming down her face now. I didn't mean for it to happen. I've been feeling so insecure lately, John. You're always so busy and I didn't know if I still... Stop, I said, holding up a hand. Just stop. You're blaming me for this? Because I work to pay for this apartment? For the clothes you wear? For your goddamn gym membership? That's not what I meant, she cried, her voice breaking. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought I could keep it under control. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the walls. Keep it under control? That's your defense? You brought a guy into our home, Martha. You lied to me. You betrayed me. And now you're standing there telling me it's my fault because I wasn't here to tell you you're pretty enough times a day? She started sobbing, her words spilling out between gasps. I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel so lost, so empty. I needed to feel something. I shook my head, the rage boiling over. You needed to feel something? How about shame, regret? Because all I'm feeling right now is disgust. I turned, grabbed her clothes from the couch, and hurled them toward her. Get dressed, Martha. Get out. John, please, she begged, clutching the sheet as if it could shield her from the storm. Don't do this. I love you. Don't you dare say that, I snapped. You don't love me. You love yourself. Or at least, you love whatever version of yourself you see in the reflection of someone else's eyes. Get dressed and get out before I do something I'll regret. Her sobs quieted to hiccups, and she nodded, trembling as she pulled on her clothes. I stood there, fists clenched, watching her every move, daring her to argue. But she didn't. She just slipped on her shoes, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. Martha, I said, stopping her in her tracks. She turned, hope flickering in her eyes for a moment. Don't come back. She hesitated, then nodded again, her face crumpling as she opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. I slammed it shut behind her, the sound reverberating through the apartment like a final nail in the coffin. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, my mind racing and my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But mostly I just felt empty. That night, after Martha left, I sat alone in our apartment, staring at the half-empty glass of orange juice her friend had abandoned on the counter. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. I felt like I'd been gutted, my insides hollowed out and replaced with anger, disappointment, and, if I'm being honest, a little bit of relief. For the first time, I could see things clearly. Martha wasn't just a woman who had made a mistake. No, this went deeper than that. She was obsessed with how the world saw her. Every compliment, every lingering look from a stranger, every second of attention, it was like fuel for her. She craved it, depended on it, like a plant depends on sunlight. And me? I'd spent years convincing myself that I was enough to keep her happy, to keep her grounded. I wasn't. Looking back, it was obvious. The signs were there from the beginning. The way she'd flirt with waiters, the way she'd light up when men paid her compliments, the way she'd pout when they didn't. I told myself it was harmless, just her personality. But now, I could see that nothing had changed. The same insecurities that caused fights when we were dating were still there, buried just beneath the surface, waiting to explode. And explode they did. By the next morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to try to fix this. I wasn't going to beg her to stay or let her manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. This wasn't something I could forgive, and even if I could, I knew it would happen again. Martha wasn't going to change, and I wasn't going to waste another second pretending she would. The decision to divorce was cold, calculated, and, in a way, freeing. There wasn't much to fight over. The apartment was rented, our finances were separate, and we didn't have kids. It was as clean a break as you could hope for in a mess like this. I called a divorce lawyer that afternoon and started the paperwork. Later, I picked up the phone and called Mike, one of the friends who had tried to warn me about Martha before we got married. When he answered, his voice was cautious, like he was bracing himself for bad news. "Mike," I said, "you were right. About everything. He didn't gloat, didn't say, "I told you so," even though he had every right to. Instead, he just said, "You okay, man?" "Not really," I admitted, "but I will be." We talked for a while, and he reminded me of something I'd forgotten in all of this. I wasn't alone. Mike and a few other friends reached out over the next few days, and their support was inspiring. They didn't judge me for ignoring their warnings. They just had my back, no questions asked. When the divorce papers were ready, I arranged to meet Martha in a public place, neutral ground. I didn't want to risk her showing up at the apartment again, crying and begging, or worse, trying to manipulate me into giving her another chance. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. When she walked in, she looked exactly as I expected, perfectly put together. Hair styled, makeup flawless, outfit coordinated down to the last accessory. It was like she was going to an audition instead of a meeting to end her marriage. I couldn't help but wonder how much effort she'd put into looking casually perfect, and it just reinforced everything I already knew about her. She sat down across from me, her expression a mix of nerves and defiance. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on the space between us. I slid the envelope across the table. "These are the divorce papers," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's straightforward, no arguments, no drama. I just want this to be over." Her hands hovered over the envelope, but she didn't pick it up. "John," she said, her voice soft, almost pleading, "are you sure this is what you want?" I looked her dead in the eye. I've never been more sure of anything. She blinked, tears welling up, but I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. Not anymore. She'd made her choices, and I was done paying the price for them. After a moment she nodded, took the envelope, and stood up. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Martha sat there, flipping through the divorce papers with a kind of detached focus, like she was skimming a restaurant menu. The silence stretched between us, and I was just starting to think we might get through this without any more drama when she closed the envelope, set it down on the table, and looked me dead in the eye. "John," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "Am I beautiful?" The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. I blinked, leaning back slightly in my chair, trying to process if she'd really just said that. "Martha," I began cautiously, "I don't think that's the point of this conversation." Her lips curled into a small, almost pitying smile. "It's a simple question," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Yes or no? Do you think I'm beautiful?" I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Martha, we're here to finalize our divorce, not to talk about this." She wasn't having it. "Oh, come on, John," she said, leaning forward, her voice picking up a sharp edge. "You know it's true. I'm beautiful. I turn heads when I walk into a room. Men look at me. Women envy me. And you're about to let me go. Do you have any idea what you're losing?" My jaw tightened. "What I'm losing," I said slowly, "is the woman who betrayed me. The woman who brought another man into our home and then tried to make it my fault. Beauty has nothing to do with it." She rolled her eyes, letting out a short, humorless laugh. "Of course you'd say that. You don't get it, do you? You're just overwhelmed. You don't know how to handle a woman like me." I stared at her, incredulous. "A woman like you?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "You mean a woman who lies, cheats, and then tries to blame it on some twisted insecurity about being desirable? Yeah, you're right, Martha. I don't know how to handle that, and I don't want to." But she wasn't done. She leaned back, crossing her arms, her expression shifting from pleading to smug. "You're just scared, John. That's all this is. You're scared because I'm too much for you. You couldn't keep up with me, and instead of trying, you're running away." Typical. I sat there for a moment staring at her, my mind reeling. How had we gone from signing divorce papers to this? Finally, I let out a bitter laugh and shook my head. "You know what, Martha? You're right. I am running as fast as I can in the opposite direction, because you're not some prize I need to hold on to. You're a walking disaster who can't go 5 minutes without fishing for validation. You don't need a husband, you need a therapist, or maybe a whole team of them." Her mouth fell open, her face flushing with anger, but I didn't wait for her to respond. I grabbed my jacket, stood up, and threw some cash on the table for my coffee. "Good luck, Martha," I said, turning to leave. "You're gonna need it." As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, relief, and a deep, abiding sense of finality. Later, on what would have been our second wedding anniversary, the divorce was finalized. It was quick, clean, and almost anticlimactic. A few signatures, a couple of formalities, and that was it. We were no longer husband and wife. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. But as I walked out of the courthouse that day, I felt lighter, like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted off my shoulders. Martha could keep her beauty, her drama, her need for constant attention. After the divorce, life moved on, at least for me. Martha, on the other hand, seemed to take our split as some kind of green light to go completely off the rails. Word got back to me through mutual acquaintances, because of course it did, that she was living like a wild bachelorette, like someone who had been locked in a cage and was finally let loose. Late nights, new guys every week, partying like it was her job. It was all, well, it was pathetic, really. I couldn't help but feel a little disgusted. Here was the woman who had once told me she wanted stability, who said marriage would solve our problems, now out there acting like a college freshman on spring break. It was everything I'd come to expect from her, and yet somehow it still surprised me. Not that I was dwelling on her anymore. If anything, her behavior was just further confirmation that I'd made the right decision. As for me, I took a very different approach. I started reconnecting with old friends, the same ones who'd tried to warn me about Martha. They didn't say, "I told you so," and for that, I was grateful. Instead, we just picked up where we left off. Nights out with the guys, poker games, beers after work. It felt good to be around people who had my back, who didn't make me second-guess myself every 5 minutes. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into it, picking up new projects, chasing promotions, and just staying busy. It wasn't a distraction. It was a reminder of what I could achieve when I wasn't being dragged down by someone else's chaos. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to realize something else. The divorce hadn't just been about letting go of Martha. It was about letting go of a part of myself too, the part that had ignored every red flag, that had clung to the idea of fixing something that was clearly broken. So, I made a decision. I booked an appointment with a therapist. At first, it felt a little awkward, sitting there and spilling my guts to a stranger. But as the sessions went on, I started to see things more clearly. I saw the patterns I'd fallen into, the way I'd ignored my own needs, my own boundaries, all because I was blinded by some idealized version of Martha that never really existed. Therapy didn't just help me process what happened with her. It helped me understand myself. It made me realize that I needed to stop chasing people who were never going to give me what I needed. These days, I'm in a much better place. I've got a solid group of friends, a career I'm proud of, and, most importantly, a sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.